Have you ever felt like you are the only one being left behind while the rest of the world rushes forward? When everyone around you seems to have found their path, and you are still tangled in questions with no clear answers, that feeling does not come crashing in all at once. It seeps in quietly when you first wake up, when you look at an empty calendar, or when you catch a glimpse of someone walking by with confidence in their eyes. I remember afternoons like that. I would sit still, watching the sunlight fade on the balcony, feeling like the entire world was moving forward while I stood still. There was no big event, no clear reason, just a real and nameless confusion that lingered. And I held on to that feeling for a long time, until I realized maybe I needed to hear something different, something softer, something more honest, something no one had ever told me before. Today, I want to share that with you. I used to think the feeling of falling behind was something temporary, but it turns out it can quietly stay for a long time like a thin mist, settling over each passing day. Those days when I was still working, still smiling when I needed to, still replying to messages on time, but feeling completely hollow inside. Not sad, just a kind of tiredness that is hard to describe. I remember once, at a small gathering, someone asked, "How have you been lately?" I nodded, smiled, and said, "I've been good." But the moment I turned away, I just wished someone could look a little deeper, to see that my answer was not the truth. I was not okay. I was just good at hiding it. I kept comparing myself to people who had no idea I was comparing myself to them. I created hundreds of invisible milestones in my head by this age. I should have it together. By that age, I should be successful. And then I felt disappointed in myself simply because I was not following that imagined timeline. Worse than that, I did not dare to say it out loud, because I was afraid that if I admitted I was being left behind, I really would be left behind. So I chose silence, and in that silence, the loneliness grew bigger. Then one night, when everything was too quiet and I could no longer ignore how I felt, I stepped out onto the balcony. I did not bring anything with me, just stood there, in a city that was still wide awake, while something inside me had almost shut down. The breeze was soft, the air was cool, everything felt strangely normal, and in that normalcy, a question quietly popped into my mind. What if I am not falling behind, but just walking a different path? In that moment, I did not have an answer. But for the first time, instead of blaming myself for not doing this or not achieving that, I tried to look back at what I had already made it through. I remember the times I changed jobs because I could no longer bear the weight. The relationships I had to walk away from, even when I was still in love. The days I still showed up to work with a heart full of cracks that no one could see. I began to understand that maybe I had not come as far as others, not because I was lazy, but because I was busy, surviving. And surviving, sometimes, is also a way of moving forward even. If there is no applause, no medals, no celebratory posts. Since that day, I started paying more attention to the little things, not in the overly intentional way of trying to practice daily gratitude, but simply to let myself slow down and breathe. I stopped setting my alarm too early just to chase some vague idea of productivity. I wrote a few lines every morning, not to make plans, but to clear space for the emotions stuck inside me. I took walks without headphones, without goals, just to hear the sound of my own footsteps hitting the ground. I also slowly learned to stop looking at other people's lives as if they were my map. Maybe they had reached point A, point B, point C, but that was their map. As for me, maybe I was on a path with more twists and turns, but it was still a path, and I was still moving forward. One afternoon, I saw a leaf fall very slowly. No rush, no panic, not afraid of falling later than the others. And I thought, maybe I need to relearn how to walk like that, not swept away, not racing to catch up with anyone, just being honest with myself. When I stopped trying to catch up with life, I finally started to live in it. Not more, but deeper. And for me, at that moment, that was enough. I realized what had exhausted me was not just moving more slowly than others, but failing to acknowledge my own quiet journey. There were parts of the road I walked where no one noticed. Small choices that took tremendous courage, like not avoiding the next morning, even when the night before had been a mess of tangled thoughts. The days I quietly got through negative emotions not because I was fine, but because I did not want to collapse again. No one congratulated me for choosing to face things instead of running away. No one acknowledged the fact that I still took care of myself, even when I had lost all excitement for life. But I began to see clearly. It was those small things that kept me grounded. Not the milestones, but the quiet steps. The times I chose to keep going even when my heart was not ready. We often only see success at the finish line. But sometimes, the very act of still trying even when no one sees it, no one knows about it, is already something to be proud of. And when I learned how to appreciate that, I began to walk with a different feeling. No longer carrying the weight of feeling inferior, but instead with a quiet respect for myself, for the person who did not give up, even when no one expected me to keep going. I used to think that if I had not achieved what others had at the same age, it meant I was falling behind. But then I asked myself, falling behind compared to whom? By whose standards? And why does that even matter so much? No one really knows whose clock they're living by. We grow up following an invisible roadmap. Finish school on time, fall in love at the right moment, start a career, get married, settle down. But real life does not line up so neatly like a textbook. It is messy, delayed, and sometimes even moves backward. And that is exactly what makes it real. I have met people who seemed to succeed early, but just a few years later, no longer knew what they were living for. I have also seen people who took a long time to find their path, but once they found it, they walked it with steady confidence. And I began to realize, no one is truly on schedule. Each person is living their own life with their own losses, lessons, and cycles that no one else could ever fully understand. I no longer need to try to be like anyone else. I no longer need to prove that I am busy or making progress. Because honestly, what I need most is to be honest with myself. That I am not late. I am simply living at my own pace that is slow but true. A pace that does not chase, does not strain, does not compete. Just continuing one small step at a time is enough. Now, whenever I feel myself slowing down, I no longer panic like I used to. I just remind myself, it is okay. I am still moving, and that is what truly matters. I do not need to be faster than anyone. I do not need to reach the finish line on time. I just need to stay connected with myself and be honest about what my heart needs. Because not everyone starts from the same place. Some carry old wounds. Some have had to take care of their families from a young age. Some need time to heal before they can begin again. And all of that is valid. All of it deserves respect. If you are in a phase of uncertainty, not sure where you are going, or feeling like the world is leaving you behind, I hope you know this. You are not alone. And what you are feeling right now is not the end. It is just a pause in the journey, a moment to breathe, to reflect, and then to continue at your own pace. Thank you for staying with me until these final words. If this story has touched you in any way, I believe that somewhere in this quiet space, you will find a way to carry it with you in your own way. And maybe, just maybe, This gentle message will find its way to someone else, someone who also needs to hear what you just heard today.